There are moments in human history when silence speaks louder than noise, when the world seems to slow just enough for the soul to remember something ancient and true. Christmas is one of those moments. Not the crowded streets or the glittering lights, but the stillness beneath it all, the quiet knowing that something unseen is moving, shaping, preparing. This season does not arrive to entertain you. It arrives to awaken you. It asks whether you still remember how creation actually begins, not with evidence, not with permission, but with belief. Long before anything manifests in form, it exists as conviction. Long before a path appears, someone must walk as if it already does. And that is the power hidden within Christmas belief. The reminder that reality bows first to consciousness. Every life is built twice, first in the mind, then in the world. This truth has echoed through scripture, philosophy, and the whispered lessons of time. When the world was told a savior would be born, nothing about the environment supported the prophecy. No palace waited, no army assembled, no wealth gathered in anticipation. Only belief stood guard over the promise. A belief so strong it turned a stable into sacred ground. And this is not history for admiration alone. It is instruction, because what was true then is true now. Your environment does not determine your destiny. Your inner agreement does. The mind is not a passive observer of life. It is the architect of experience. What you repeatedly hold as true becomes the lens through which all possibility is filtered. This is why so many wander through existence exhausted yet unchanged. They work harder on circumstances than they do on conviction. They negotiate with doubt instead of commanding vision. But Christmas belief does not negotiate. It declares. It stands unmoved by delay. It understands that timing is not denial, it is preparation. Consider the ancient figures who altered the course of humanity. They were not chosen because they were flawless. They were chosen because they believed when belief was inconvenient. Noah built before rain existed. Abraham walked without a map. Moses spoke to power with nothing but certainty. These were not acts of logic. They were acts of alignment. They understood that faith is not blind. It is disciplined focus on an outcome not yet visible. Napoleon Hill would later name it definiteness of purpose. But long before the words were written, the law was already at work. Belief shapes perception, and perception governs behavior. When belief is weak, discipline collapses under pressure. When belief is strong, discipline becomes devotion. You do not force yourself forward, you are pulled by vision. This is why the Christmas story endures. It is not sentimental. It is strategic. It teaches that greatness enters the world quietly, often unrecognized, protected only by those who see with the inner eye. The shepherds were not courtiers, but they were receptive. The wise men were not hurried, but they were committed. They moved because belief told them movement mattered. Pause here, breathe, because this is where the transformation begins, not in action, but in awareness. Ask yourself what you have stopped believing because it took too long. Ask what vision you abandoned because it demanded patience. Christmas belief does not rush fulfillment. It honors process. It understands that growth is gestational. Nothing powerful arrives instantly. Everything meaningful develops in silence. The world today is louder than ever, yet more disconnected from purpose. Speed has replaced depth. Reaction has replaced reflection. But belief requires stillness. It requires the courage to sit with uncertainty without surrendering identity. This is why so few master it. It demands inner leadership. It asks you to decide who you are before the world assigns you a role. And once that decision is made, persistence becomes inevitable. What you believe about yourself is not a thought. It is a command. The mind accepts it and organizes behavior accordingly. This is why gratitude matters. Gratitude is not politeness. It is reinforcement. It signals to the subconscious that what you hold is enough to build upon. When gratitude replaces complaint, resilience strengthens. When adaptability replaces resistance, progress accelerates. And this is the hidden rhythm of the season, a call to realign the inner world so the outer world may follow. Christmas belief is not nostalgia. It is instruction for mastery. It reminds you that even in the most modest conditions, something eternal can be born. And what is waiting to be born in you does not need approval, only belief strong enough to protect it while it grows. That protection is rarely loud. It is not defended with arguments or announcements. It is guarded through consistency, through quiet choices made when no one is watching. This is the discipline of belief, the willingness to act in alignment with a vision that has not yet introduced itself to the world. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in truth it is devotion made visible. It is the structure that allows belief to survive contact with reality. Without discipline, belief becomes wishful thinking. With discipline, it becomes inevitability. Consider how often the greatest shifts in history began with a single individual refusing to abandon a vision. Joseph endured betrayal and imprisonment, not because circumstances were kind, but because his inner picture was clear. He did not allow temporary humiliation to rewrite permanent identity. This is clarity, the ability to distinguish between what is happening to you and what is being prepared through you. Christmas belief understands this difference. It teaches patience without passivity, waiting without weakness. Purpose is not discovered in comfort. It is revealed through commitment. When the world resists you, it is not always rejection. It is refinement. Gold is not offended by fire. It is perfected by it. And so the individual anchored in belief does not ask why challenges appear. They ask how those challenges are shaping capacity. This mindset is not accidental. It is trained. It is cultivated through repeated alignment between thought and action. There is a moment in every journey when belief must evolve or die. The initial excitement fades. The vision remains distant. This is where persistence separates those who admire possibility from those who embody it. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is loyalty to a future self. It is the refusal to let temporary emotion override eternal intention. This is why the Christmas story does not end at birth. It continues through obscurity, labor, rejection, and sacrifice. Because belief that cannot endure obscurity cannot handle responsibility. Gratitude becomes essential here, not gratitude for outcomes, but gratitude for capacity. Gratitude for strength being developed, for awareness expanding, for resilience hardening into wisdom. Gratitude anchors belief in reality without allowing reality to limit belief. It keeps the heart open while the will remains firm. And in that balance, adaptability is born. The ability to adjust methods without abandoning mission. The humility to learn without surrendering authority over one's inner direction. Adaptability is not compromise. It is intelligence in motion. Water does not lose power when it changes shape. It gains access. So too does belief become more effective when it learns how to move through changing conditions. This is why rigid minds break under pressure while flexible minds rise. The Christmas message is not rigidity of form, it is permanence of essence. The message adapts across cultures, centuries, and circumstances because its core is unchanging. What is believed deeply enough becomes lived eventually. Inner resilience is forged here, in the space between expectation and manifestation. It is the calm endurance that allows you to remain composed while the world tests your certainty. This resilience is not emotional numbness. It is emotional mastery. It is the ability to feel deeply without being controlled by feeling, to acknowledge fear without obeying it, to recognize doubt without granting it authority. This is not taught by comfort, it is taught by commitment. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, transformation occurs. Not as a dramatic event, but as a quiet reorientation. You begin to think differently, speak differently, choose differently. The old reactions no longer fit. The old excuses sound foreign. This is how identity shifts, not by declaration, but by embodiment. You do not announce belief. You live as if it is already true, and the world, confused at first, eventually conform. Wealth and success enter this narrative not as prizes but as byproducts. They are evidence of alignment, not goals in themselves. When the inner world is ordered, the outer world responds with opportunity. When clarity governs decision-making, resources organize. When purpose directs effort, success becomes a natural consequence rather than a desperate pursuit. This is why chasing outcomes fails, but embodying principles succeeds. Christmas belief reminds you that the most valuable things are invisible until they mature. Faith, vision, resilience, wisdom, these cannot be rushed. They must be trusted. And trust is not blind. It is informed by history, by law, by the repeated testimony of those who dared to believe beyond what they could see. Stay with this understanding. Let it settle deeper than motivation. Because belief once rooted does not fade with seasons. It becomes the foundation upon which every future victory is built. As that foundation strengthens, something remarkable begins to occur. The noise of the world loses its authority. Opinions no longer dictate direction. Fear no longer negotiates terms. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. When belief is anchored in purpose, the mind becomes sovereign. You no longer react to life, you respond from vision. This is mastery. And mastery is always quiet before it is visible. The ancient texts speak of renewing the mind for a reason. Because transformation is not achieved by changing surroundings alone, but by recalibrating perception. The lens through which you interpret challenge determines whether it becomes an obstacle or an instrument. Christmas belief teaches this subtly, yet profoundly. The world did not change when belief was born in that manger. Consciousness did. And consciousness reshaped the world over time. This is where many falter. They expect immediate validation. They want applause before alignment. But belief matures in privacy. It grows stronger when tested by isolation. This is why solitude often precedes significance. When you are stripped of external affirmation, you are forced to confront the strength of your inner agreement. Do you still believe when no one confirms it? Do you still persist when progress is invisible? This is the threshold few cross. Vision, once clarified, demands protection, not from others, but from self-doubt disguised as reason. The mind will attempt to retreat to familiarity when uncertainty stretches comfort. But belief is not comfort-driven, it is purpose-driven. It understands that the unknown is not dangerous, it is undeveloped. And development requires patience. Purpose refines energy. Without it, effort scatters. With it, effort concentrates. This is why clarity feels like peace even when the path is demanding. You are not confused because you are not divided. You know why you move, even if you do not yet know how everything will unfold. Christmas belief does not demand full explanation. It demands faithfulness to the next step. Discipline returns here not as force but as rhythm. The daily choices align naturally with long-term vision. You no longer negotiate with procrastination because action feels like agreement with identity. This is the quiet power of inner mastery. You become consistent because inconsistency no longer matches who you see yourself to be. Persistence deepens, not fueled by desperation, but by certainty. The storms may intensify, but the foundation holds. You no longer measure progress by speed, but by direction. You understand that delay does not diminish destiny, and this understanding creates calm endurance, a strength that does not shout but sustains. Gratitude evolves into reverence, not just for outcomes, but for the process itself, for the shaping, the refining, the becoming. Gratitude anchors you in abundance even before abundance appears. It trains the mind to recognize opportunity disguised as challenge. And this recognition accelerates growth. Adaptability continues to expand capacity. You learn when to press forward and when to pause, when to speak and when to observe. This discernment is not taught. It is earned through attention, through listening inwardly rather than reacting outward. Christmas belief honors stillness as much as movement. Both are necessary. Both are powerful. Inner resilience now becomes unshakable. You are not immune to hardship, but you are no longer defined by it. You bend without breaking. You learn without losing direction. You endure without bitterness. This is the strength that transforms character into legacy. And then, almost without announcement, the external world begins to reflect the internal shift. Opportunities align, resources appear, influence grows. Wealth and success emerge not as trophies but as tools to expand impact, to reinforce purpose, to serve something larger than self. This is the natural order: inner mastery first, external manifestation second. Christmas belief was never meant to end at tradition. It was meant to remind humanity of this order, that the greatest gifts are not wrapped, but developed, that the most powerful force is not money or status, but belief disciplined by purpose, and that every individual, regardless of origin or circumstance, carries the capacity to participate in this law. Remain here. Let this truth anchor itself, because belief, once fully realized, does not simply change what you do, it changes who you are willing to become. In becoming is the true miracle. Not sudden, not theatrical, but profound. It is the quiet unfolding of potential that was always present, waiting only for permission. Christmas belief grants that permission. It whispers that you are not late, not forgotten, not disqualified. You are in preparation, and preparation is sacred ground. The world will attempt to define you by history, by mistakes, by limitations. But belief defines you by possibility. This is why the mind must be guarded. What you allow to take residence there determines the architecture of your future. Doubt is not evil, but it is unqualified to lead. Fear is not weakness, but it cannot be trusted with direction. Belief alone has the authority to command the inner world toward destiny. Vision sharpens now. It is no longer vague or borrowed. It is personal, precise, alive. You feel it when you wake and when you rest. It informs your decisions even when you do not consciously think about it. This is when clarity becomes identity. You are no longer searching, you are becoming. Purpose expands beyond self. It begins to touch others. Your discipline inspires. Your persistence encourages. Your calm in uncertainty becomes a signal that something deeper is at work. Influence grows organically when belief is authentic. It does not need persuasion. It radiates. The ancient teachings understood this, that leadership is first internal, that authority flows from alignment, not position. This is why those who believe deeply changed systems without seeking power. Power followed belief, not the other way around. Gratitude now feels like humility before law. You recognize that what you are building is not achieved alone. You are cooperating with principles older than time, principles that reward focus, integrity, patience, and courage. This recognition keeps ego in check and purpose clear. Adaptability becomes wisdom. You no longer resist change, you interpret it. You ask what each shift requires of you. You move with intelligence, not impulse. This is how resilience matures into stability. You are no longer easily shaken because you are no longer anchored to outcomes alone. You are anchored to identity. And identity is the ultimate currency. Wealth responds to it, opportunity responds to it, success recognizes it. When you become the kind of person who can hold responsibility, responsibility arrives. When you become the kind of mind that can manage resources, resources appear. This is not luck, it is correspondence. Christmas belief teaches that birth precedes recognition, that the greatest forces begin unnoticed, that what matters most is not how something starts, but what it is faithful to while it grows. And you, right now, are growing. Whether you see it or not, whether the world applauds or ignores. This is why patience is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is trust in process. It is belief matured into wisdom. And wisdom does not hurry. Stay present with this truth, because what you are stepping into is not merely a new season. It is a new self-concept, one that cannot be shaken by circumstance, because it is rooted in understanding. And now, as the weight of these truths settles, something final yet expansive emerges. A realization that belief is not something you possess. It is something you live. It is the breath beneath intention, the pulse beneath persistence, the quiet authority beneath every decisive act. Christmas belief does not ask you to escape the world. It asks you to transform within it. You stand now at the intersection of awareness and choice, not because the calendar has turned, but because consciousness has. You see differently. You understand that the inner world is the origin point of all power, that clarity is protection, that purpose is propulsion, that discipline is devotion, that persistence is loyalty to the unseen, that gratitude is alignment with abundance, that adaptability is intelligence, that resilience is sovereignty. And from this sovereignty, success flows naturally, not forced, not frantic, but earned through alignment. Wealth becomes stewardship. Influence becomes responsibility. Achievement becomes expression. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer demand. You embody. This is the hidden power of Christmas belief. Not tradition, but transformation. Not celebration, but consecration. A reminder that within you lies the same creative law that has shaped history's greatest moments. And that law responds now, as it always has, to belief disciplined by purpose. Step forward carrying this, not loudly, not urgently, but confidently, because what you believe deeply enough, you are already becoming.